Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Tuesday, May 10th. I can't believe it's May 10th. That just doesn't seem real. My name is Barbie Winterbottom, and you are watching me live. And welcome to the table. This month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's important that we showcase and feature individuals and organizations who are out there helping all of us to create better workplaces and to help us recognize when the crossover between mental health and productivity, mental health and efficiency, but mental health and our overall well-being. And our very special guest today, I'm very excited to share with you, is Vivian Acquah. And Vivian is a specialist in diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, and also the connection between DE&I and mental health, and especially in the workplace. So join me in welcoming Vivian to the table.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Barbie, for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you. Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. And as we were prepping for our conversation, it's important that everyone know we don't pre-plan the conversation, but we do
hmm
have a prep just to make sure we're aligned and all of that. And you shared with me some really great information that I'm so excited to share with our audience today. And I want to learn more about all the amazing work you're doing, personally and for your clients and in the world. But I would love to start off by sharing kind of what was your impetus? What got you into doing this work? Why do you have such a passion for DE&I and mental health awareness? And how did these things come together for you?
Well, I'm based in Amsterdam, the Netherlands, and people might think that the Netherlands, based in Europe, is very progressive, which it is, but you have to realize that I am a Black woman and I've dealt with different isms in the workplace, and I've seen different companies also from the inside out, knowing what works and what doesn't work as the work that I have done as a consultant. And what really impacted me the most was when I was just 5 weeks pregnant and made my announcement with my then managers. I did not tell it to my friends or family members. I told my managers because I was dealing with morning sickness. Instead of getting sympathy, empathy, I was being bullied. And that was something very hurtful. Also realizing that that bullying process caused me to it played a huge role in me having hypertension. And my midwife warned me, what are you doing, right? What is more important? Because if you don't do something about the environment or the situation that you're in, it will not only impact your health, but it can also impact your unborn child. And that was a wake up call. Luckily, nothing happened to my son and everything was fine. But for me, the moment seeing my son and realizing that I am his role model, he is watching every step that I'm taking, also his father's steps, and realizing that if I don't turn my back towards this company and show them like I I belong in a place where I'm being valued, where my voice is being heard. If I don't do that now, then what do I say to my son when he comes to a stage where he wants to have that conversation with his parents about him not fitting in, right? So it was an awakening, but also we have these mirror moments with parents or with other children that they say something like kids say the darnest things or do the darnest things. And this was one of these moments that my son showed me that I'm much more valuable than the way that I was treated in the workplace.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to find out from you, what did that bullying look like? Because we hear about people being bullied or
hmm
microaggressions in the workplace, specifically to Black women in the workplace. It's significantly higher from everything that I've read and all the conversations I've had with Black women. It seems that there's definitely more acceptance for that to be okay,
Hmm.
when
Yeah.
it's not okay ever, but
hmm
it definitely seems to go either unnoticed or unaddressed.
hmm
What does that look like to you, or what did it look like to
There
you?
were there were different combinations. One combination was the moment that I revealed was it planned? And in that moment of time, I wish I had the power to say to my then manager, say to the like, do you need to see my schedule when I'm having sex? But at the time,
Right.
that manager is a narcissist, and talking back to a narcissist in that way would be killing for me. It really hurted me though. It really hurted me that I activated my fight, flies, freeze, especially the freeze moment. The other thing that happened is them putting doubt in my work, in my capacity, saying that I wasn't doing things well, putting in a lot of different comments in myself where I almost doubted myself. I almost doubted who I was, but I was working with that company for 4 years before that time, and apparently the moment that I made that announcement, I was being dehumanized. I was being, overrated or not seen as valuable anymore. And it's unfortunately it happens to too many parents, new parents as well. And I want it to end. I want to do something instead of being part of the problem. I want to play a role in a solution and creating an environment that parents can make an announcement as when they want it and feel safe, even when they are interviewing for a role. I feel like we need to be open or provide a safe space where people can make an announcement that they are pregnant. I see so many announcements on LinkedIn from time to time, but I've never seen a Black woman or a woman of color making an announcement saying that they were hired while they were pregnant. Never seen that so far.
Yeah, I don't know that I have either, now that you mention that. And it's interesting because, I'm asked pretty frequently when I train folks on how to conduct interviews. I spend a lot of my time training leaders and leadership teams on how to properly facilitate an interview and how to extract meaningful information. And the first thing is, it's not an interrogation. It should be a
Hmm.
two-way conversation. And one of the questions I'm asked frequently is, well, what's illegal to ask and what isn't illegal to ask?
Yeah. Hmm.
And, that varies depending on the state you're in, the country you're in, and that kind of thing. But my answer is always goes back to, what is your intent of asking the question? Because that's really the most important element of the question, when deemed inappropriate or appropriate. And I share the example, if you read Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, one of the things that she talks about is whenever she's interviewing women who at least appear to be of childbearing age, which
Hmm.
is a pretty big range, she will, with intention, ask them, are you planning on having a family? Do you have a family? Are you, potentially pregnant now? And she asks because she wants them to know that it's a very safe space for them if that's part of their plan, that they don't have to choose one or the other, or a career or parenting, because she herself has two children. She experienced what it was like to be pregnant, to, have that baby and then go back to work. So, it's not always illegal to ask questions, but if your intention is to ask so that you can discriminate,
Yeah.
that's not a good practice. But if you ask, or you want to share information to let that person know that I'm here to support you if that's part of your journey and your career is not going to suffer as a result, that's game changing.
Yeah.
But so few people are actually doing that, right? They're asking for the wrong reasons and not the right reasons.
Yeah. I've
It's
never seen a situation where I was being asked that, um, are you planning, to continue? And to be honest, if somebody asked me the question that you just mentioned without sharing that context, without sharing that transparency, I would not say anything because I believe, like, since when is the workplace part of my bedroom, right?
right, right. Yeah, absolutely. It's really no one's business. Uh,
Yeah.
with the exception of, I'm here to support you. And I
Yeah.
love how she shares that, because she
Yeah.
does say that to people. I want you to know these are the things that I care about, as you as a person and as the business, and they can coincide, right? You
Right.
don't have to be mutually exclusive to be a parent or a professional, or pregnant or employed. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So
Mm-hmm.
she does a really great job, but she's the only person that I've ever read who does that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure there are other women out there now that are doing similar things. But at the time, I had never read or heard of such a thing. And I was like, wow, that makes such a huge difference by just making it okay for somebody to share their truth, as long as you honor and respect the truth that they share, right? And you don't weaponize it, which is
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately what happens all too often.
What baffles me is that everybody comes from a parent, right? I know that I'm trying to be as inclusive as
Yes.
I can, so I'm not referring to only mothers, but as a parent, and realizing that if you're asking an inappropriate question or you have ill intent, how would you feel if your parent went through that? Or how would you feel if your child is
Yeah.
going through that stage? And every time that I'm doing this or doing the work that I do, I'm thinking of how would the other person feel? Or how would my son feel? Or how would somebody else feel when I'm saying this or where I'm doing this?
Mhm. I love that. And I spend a lot of my days coaching HR professionals and mostly women, and all the way up to CHRO. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
just the entry level people who are trying to navigate. We're talking, CHROs and CPOs. And often, they will ask me these questions about how I'm in this horrible situation and I'm not being heard, or I'm saying something and it's being dismissed. A white middle-aged man says the same thing the next day, and it's the greatest
Yeah.
idea since sliced bread, and what do
Mm-hmm.
I do? And often we have the conversation. I let them share their details, and it reminded me of what you said, and I bring it back around to hit home something with them. And I say, okay, so do you want to stay there? What benefit are you gaining? What positive things are happening in addition to these negative things that are happening? And if your daughter came to you with this
Mm-hmm.
conversation,
Yeah.
what advice would you give her? And every time without fail, they sit back in their chair and they just kind of
Yeah.
put their head down, right? Like, yep, I know what I need to do.
Yeah.
But when we don't often advocate for ourselves the way we would advocate for others. And you've really taken your experience and not only become an advocate for yourself, but you're also now an advocate for others as well. So I'd love to take the conversation to, okay, so we know what happened and what really inspired you to start the work, but let's talk about the work you are doing and how you're helping individuals and organizations and the tools you're using. Because I am really excited that you are not only leading a charge for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace, but you're embracing technology in a way that very few have to help deliver these messages, right?
Do you see that, Robert? I mean, not
Yeah.
many people know. Not many people know that, and Mary Jane knows this. She knows me very well. I'm a nerd. I come from an IT background, so for me to be able to marinate DEI, well-being, and also with the use of tech, that's the holy grail for me. So I get all excited.
I love that. I love
and
that.
it's using AI in a positive way, using IT or tech in a positive way, because I know that there are so many stories out there regarding AI, regarding tech being hurtful or being excluding others. This is a way of showcasing what the exclusion looks like so that we can unlock empathy.
So tell us about this. Tell us about this virtual reality experience that
Mhm.
you provide for folks, and what is the experience like, and what kind of responses are you getting?
There are different scenarios available, but just to keep things real, right? We've all seen what happened in Ukraine and also the response of people who were fleeing there. I'm not going to share that the one other refugee is more important about the other refugee, but then again, there are some refugees out there that I cannot relate to, that you cannot relate to. So a way to unlock empathy is to literally walk in their shoes, and you're walking in somebody else's shoes to bring it back to the workplace. You being me, becoming a black woman, seeing how the different isms that are being shared. Mary Jane also mentioned something about gaslighting, but if you're walking in the workplace and for you, it will feel like you're walking in a field of cactuses. You don't know which cactus is going to be prickly. You don't know which cactus is going to trigger you. But sometimes for some people, it feels like they are walking on eggshells on a daily basis and they don't know what is going to trigger somebody else for hurting them. And it really feels like a battlefield for some people. So for people to be able to experience just a snippet, just 5 minutes, a snippet of how demeaning, how dehumanizing it can be for other people, that accelerates the conversation. Because now I'm not having any conversations about we don't have this or this is not happening here. We are accelerating ourselves. So instead of starting with the kiddie pool, we are accelerating the learning or the experience, and we are now going to pool number one, pool number two, because people now can have experiences. And the beautiful thing about VR, there is a cartoon version of VR. I don't believe in that version because it doesn't activate the embodiment. And
Mhm.
what I mean with embodiment is you really feeling like you are the one that is being hurt. And with this tool that I'm using, it's a real scenario. They're real people, and you're going through a process. You're going to isms in the workplace, sexism, you're going through racism. It might be even that you have a neurodivergent background and you're dealing with all these triggers in the workplace that for me as a non-neurodivergent person are not visible. But then again, after seeing that, I now understand that I need to be patient. I now understand to find ways to for me to connect with the other person that before was closed off for me. People communicate in different ways, and I need to realize that I need to also look myself in the eye or look myself in the mirror and say, what are you doing to create that inclusive environment for the other person as well?
I love that. So, to walk people through who may not be really in touch with VR and how it
Mm-hmm.
works, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you my explanation, and then
Yeah,
you can correct me because you're
definitely.
well more versed. Because the my exposure to VR has been my son's Oculus and
Yeah,
whatever gaming he's doing,
yeah,
right? But
yeah.
so you put on this headset, right, and it's like a big pair of goggles almost is what
Mm-hmm.
it looks like,
Yeah.
and then in there are speakers built in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you're hearing it. So it's really immersive. You
Yeah.
put it on and it you're in whatever scene or scenario you're in.
Yeah.
So is that a similar
It's a
process?
similar, but the only thing is that with this case, it's not a game. I also don't use DEI in a game version. With this is we use headphones and you close yourself off. And with this the beautiful thing about VR is your brain thinks it's real. We are fooling your brain that it's real. So not only are you watching something or listening to something, every trigger that can be triggered is triggered. So if a fight or flight or a freeze mode is being activated, it's because something is literally happening to you and you don't know what to say, or you do know what to say, or you freeze because of that. And for you finding this out in a safe way without going through that real experience, you now can learn, what can I do? What can I do to prevent these kind of situations from happening? Because that's where it starts. We need to reflect upon ourselves. What can I, myself, the person, so don't wait on the company, don't wait on the manager. What can I do to activate my DEI journey?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so for the people who have gone through your program, kind of
Hmm.
what is their take on it before they go through it and then
Hmm.
after?
The take on it is similar to what you shared. Like they use VR in a game setting and they are expecting it to be fun until, depending of course on the scenario, until they've been through a really shocking video. It can be triggering, and we also warn that depending of the scenario, what the company chooses, that some people might be opting out because it's too triggering. But depending on the scenarios that they choose, the response that we get is the first 10 minutes, wow. And the people that are talkative, even myself, you can see in the first 10 minutes that the energy has shifted, it's changed because they witnessed something that is unbelievable. But then again, it happened to them.
Right. Right. Isn't that amazing? When you see things, you're literally, like you said, you're in the shoes of
Yeah,
the person being attacked or being
yeah,
mistreated. I
yeah.
remember a few months ago I interviewed a young man. His name is Ernest Krim. I don't know if you follow Ernest or not.
Mm-hmm.
He's pretty active on LinkedIn, and he and his wife were victims of a hate crime in
Mm.
Chicago many years ago, or maybe it was Detroit. I can't remember. Anyway, he has a video that he took in that moment, because he knew if he didn't have a video evidence that it could easily be shifted.
Yeah,
He was the aggressor versus
yeah.
the white woman who was lashing out at them. And they
Mm-hmm.
were like at a festival or at a concert, and it was all over a cornhole game, and she was nasty and used every cuss word and every pejorative term possible, and the N word and all this other stuff. And so I'm watching the video because he was holding the phone here, and every time I watch the video I do get this visceral response, like, because it feels like she's yelling at me
Yeah.
and calling me the names, because he's not in the video at all. You just see it
Mm-hmm.
from his perspective. I
Yeah,
can only imagine that VR is even more immersive than that, and even
exactly.
more triggering than that video.
Yeah,
And it really does, like, you can feel your chest tighten up and
yeah,
your reflexes and
yeah.
everything start to react and ignite in one way or the other.
And
And
also we can, the iceberg where you can see the tip of what's happening regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion. But with VR, we can literally take a dive underwater where we can have deeper discussions, where we can have deeper conversation, where we can come to a place of understanding, but also together we can create a new recipe of what does it mean to create an inclusive team? What does it mean to create an inclusive organization? That's where we can have a conversation, because the majority have not witnessed racism. The majority might not even have been into a Me Too situation. But what do you do when you are a bystander? What
yeah.
do you do when you are the person who's going through that? Or what do you do when somebody approaches you, stands next to your desk and say, "This happened to me"? Are you going to say, John never does that. John is a good person. No, not
Right.
John.
Yeah. Because John's a good person to you doesn't mean he's a good person to everyone else. And I've
Exactly.
seen that with just some of the things that I've put out there on social media, that I am, I'm a, I'd like to believe anyway that I'm a strong advocate for others, but also, as a member of the LGBTQIA plus community,
Yeah.
the number of acronyms we're getting into,
The letters are too much.
I know, like, come on, guys, like, all non-straight people,
Hmm.
and gender fluid people, however we
Hmm.
want to say this. But um, I I put information out that I think is important,
Yeah.
and the attacks, the remarks, the how emboldened some
Yeah.
people are,
Yeah.
and they have no idea the privilege and the entitlement that is just baked into their reality.
Yeah.
And no matter what you say or how you push back, they just dig in even deeper. And
Yeah.
recently I read Brene Brown's new book, Atlas of the Heart, and she
Hmm.
talks about how when we have the right language, we can describe feelings and situations and scenarios so much better and with more clarity, because we mistake certain feelings for others and we
Yeah.
don't really identify them well. But the other thing she talked about is how when you have a group of people who have a X belief, whatever the belief
Hmm.
is, and they're proven wrong, or information is shared with them that says, maybe you want to look at it this way, one would think that they would say, oh, let me look at that differently. But when it's in this group mentality,
Yeah.
they dig in even deeper,
Yeah.
even though they know that there's, empirical evidence and data showing that whatever that belief is not real or is not factual, it doesn't matter. The data shows that they dig in even more. Whereas if you are approaching it as a singular conversation with one person at a time, they tend to be a little bit more open to recognizing, oh, well, I got that wrong. Let me try to figure out how I can get
Yeah.
it right. And so when you're in these workplace situations, I would think that you are dealing with that as well. Is you have to have such finesse in the way you approach this work so that you don't get that immediate shutdown and the digging in of heels to say, well, you're wrong. That's not how
Yeah.
we are, right? How
I use VR for that, but on the other end, the way that I approach DEI is unconventional. I try to mix in a lot of food and also make things very easygoing, because DEI can be as big and as complex as the Great Pacific Ocean, where somebody who has never swam will drown in all the complexity. So making it, giving them baby food version of DEI, giving them bite-sized version of DEI, but also realizing that I don't know it all. I don't claim to know it all.
right.
I'm always learning and always open to learn and learn from others, but also open my mind. The only thing that I'm asking is people to activate their inclusive growth mindset. At least learn, own up to your mistakes, say sorry, really apologize, and don't create a situation where you have done something wrong, you're not apologizing for it, and you're creating a situation where the victim now is consoling you. That is the worst
Yeah.
version. That triggers my allergies in a huge way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
the definition of narcissist, right? Is
Yeah.
when they're wrong, but they spin it so that you're
Mm,
apologizing to them. And for me, I've experienced narcissism, and what I have learned is that you really are not going to win in that
mm,
scenario.
yeah.
Your way to win is to remove yourself,
Yeah.
right? And to be empowered enough to recognize what those behaviors are and to say what's best for me is that I'm out of here,
Yeah.
right? Because
I
you're
bless you, set you free. That's
yes,
what I do.
yes, you go be you, but you're not going
Yeah.
to do that with me in your presence.
No. No.
And as an advocate and as an ally, it's important that we also see what's happening and use our voices in support of that person exiting, because it's not because that person's not strong, it's not
Hmm.
because that person's not capable or smart or have the ability to execute the work or to have a meaningful conversation. What it does mean is that person is protecting their own mental health, their
Yeah.
own sanity and well-being by saying, this is not a healthy place for me because you're not willing and open and emotionally mature enough to see what part of this conversation you need to own and what part of this conversation I need to own. And so I
Am
think,
I in church right now? Because this feels like you're preaching.
yes, yes, because we need to understand that
Yeah.
my white friends out
Yeah.
there who
Yeah.
are allies and advocates to folks of color and marginalized communities, to my straight friends out there
Hmm.
who are advocates and allies to other marginalized communities, we have to understand our
Yeah.
role in all of this, because it's not enough to only blame the transgressor,
Yeah.
to only blame the person. We have to say they feel empowered because we're standing by and allowing them to be empowered. So if we don't take our responsibility and use our voices, then these situations are not going to change.
I do have to add something on, because you were addressing the other part, but then again, I also want to address the other folks that experience something that is bad. Try to be forgiving. Try to show up your empathy, because if somebody has a mistake and done a mistake and they own up to it, don't step on their toes and say, well, you made a mistake and I will never ever forgive you, because then again, when are we giving the other opportunity to learn from that and activate their DEI journey? So I'm not saying that every situation needs to be forgotten, but there comes a time and a place that we need to forgive people and be able to move on and be able to collectively walk through the same door and respect each other.
Hmm. And I think I love that you say that, because in my experience, it doesn't always mean that they come to an understanding or
Mm-hmm.
even an
True.
acceptance,
Yeah.
but they get to a place of respecting
Mm-hmm.
your space.
Yeah.
And some, that's as far as some people ever get.
Yeah.
And if we can accept that and say, as long as you're not harming me and others I care about, then we can coexist in this space. And I recognize that I may never change or influence your belief system. And I can live with that as long as everyone's treated with respect and it's safe enough for all of us to coexist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard place to get to,
Yeah.
right? There's so much fire and fuel and emotion baked into all of this that it's hard to get to that coexistence place. But I think that's when we get to like ego, and there's so many other layers of this journey that people have to be willing to go down for
Mm-hmm.
themselves and for others, because it's not
Yeah.
easy. I don't think you've said yet once that it's easy. If it was easy, everybody'd be doing it. It's not easy, and that's why I think this work that you do and other D&I practitioners do, there's so many layers. And
There are so many layers. I mean, the one thing that you don't see is the different levels of hats or head wraps that I'm wearing, right? Because I'm not only a coach or sometimes a therapist. I'm also a consultant. I'm also this and I'm also that. And I'm human. Yes, I'm human. So I go through emotions and sometimes I need to vent. Sometimes I need to let my emotions go because certain things that I witness also with clients or with myself, it's hurtful. It's hurtful that this is happening to another human being. That's how I look at things.
yeah, for sure. So in the work that you're doing, how are you seeing workplaces change, or are you seeing workplaces change after they go through these experiences with you in the VR? Is the VR experience a one shot thing, like you go in
Mhm.
once, or is it something that you go back over time and you create new experiences? How does all of that work for anybody
It
who's
can be
watching who might be interested
it
in?
can be used as a one-time thing, but then again, I always say to other people like when you go to the gym, miracles don't happen by just one visit, right? So the way that we use VR, some clients use it 4 times per year, or some clients use it twice per year. But VR is just a tool. It's just a tool to get to the ends, and the end goal in this is how can we create a collective, inclusive recipe? How can we define the ideal temperature that so that everybody feels that their voice can be heard, so that everybody feels like they are part of the organization, and everybody feels safe. That definition is defined by the employees together. But I also see a spike on ERGs. ERGs are being revamped or reactivated or activated. ERGs are not common in Europe, especially not in the Netherlands. They are common for international companies, but for the European-based companies, they are not normal. And this is a place where companies are missing out, because with ERGs they can create a win-win situation where you have less people running away from your company, but also you create a space of belonging where they can connect with like-minded people and work together on the organization goals, work together on their career goals, and work together on creating that voice or creating that ideal inclusive recipe that they want to create within your company.
Mhm. Excuse me. And are you able to facilitate the VR training virtually, or is it only in person?
Both, but the ideal thing is in person because I want to be able to look you in the eye, and there are certain things that I cannot catch when it's done virtually.
Okay, that's amazing. I'm
Yeah.
I'm thrilled. I want to go through this, so I can say I've experienced it. So I definitely
Yeah.
want to um, find out when you're going to be either in the States or somewhere where I can like tap.
I am planning something with my co-partner who is Anita Baisa. We want to come to the States this year, and if not this year, it will be beginning of this year. Do some kind of a tour. So when that moment is there, I'll definitely reach out to a lot of people in the US and see if people are interested to go through this training, because it's really an eye opener and it doesn't have to take long. And then again, also it really speeds up the DEI learning that is needed in this space. I want to walk away from the talking. I want this tool can really help with the activating part, with the action part.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm thinking, what I love is how you tie it together with the mental health awareness, because
Mm-hmm.
having safe spaces to talk about how we're feeling
Yeah.
and what we're thinking is so tied to our D&I strategies. Like, I
Yeah.
think they're inextricably um, overlapped or joined. While you may have different ways of approaching them as individual entities, their connection is absolutely fundamental.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
People seem to forget that DEI is connected to mental well-being. It's also connected to financial well-being, but also social well-being. There are so many aspects when people feel excluded that it hurts them in their productivity. And that's why I'm combining both of them, because one cannot be without the other.
absolutely. I completely agree with that. And a dear friend of mine, Natasha Bowman, I don't know if any of you are following Natasha. If you're not,
Hmm.
please do check her out. Natasha just launched the Bowman Foundation. Um,
Mm,
Natasha has bipolar disorder. She's also a DEI and an HR consultant and a Black woman. She's also an attorney. She has so many dimensions to her wonderful being. And I'm so honored to be a part of this foundation, because it's all about the connections between D&I and mental health in the
yeah.
workplace, and things we can do to improve how we talk about it, how we action it, how we help those experiencing trauma or bullying or discrimination in the workplaces, and providing actual resources and support. And there's going to be so much coming out of that, and I could see where your work fits into this so beautifully, for that immersive real life experience of what
Hmm.
other people who may not look or think or behave like you are dealing with every single day.
Yeah.
And there's so much room, I think, in this space for us to get better and better,
Hmm.
how we're moving through it. And I love your not only embracing, but leveraging technology to do this
Yeah.
really, really meaningful work. But you do it in a way that still connects to humanity,
Yeah.
right? You're not having people fill out a survey and then doing an analysis of their responses. They're feeling it, like they're viscerally feeling it. And I think that's the moment in time when you'll be able to influence them in the future, because
Hmm.
finally understand what it really means
Yeah.
in that moment, right? And it may not happen again, but in that moment they understood and they.
Yeah, and also bringing it back to home, right? We all we need an intrinsic motivation. So my intrinsic motivator is my son, period. Everybody has an intrinsic motivator. It might be their son, it might be their dog, it might be their goddaughter or somebody else who inspires them to do better and to excel because of them. And when I tap into that, so when I have this conversation with people, who do you think of? Who do you see this happening to? And if it was them, what would you say to them, right? Who do you not want to go through this process? It
Mhm.
helps to anchor that as well.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Whenever I'm coaching folks, I have a very similar conversation when they're going through something and they know the right response. They know what they
Hmm.
need to do, but it's very hard sometimes to be an advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
So I say, if this was your son or your daughter coming to you with
Mm.
the same experience, what would you tell them? What
Yeah.
advice would you provide for them? And every single time, they sit back and they just look at me and they're like, "Yep, I got it."
Yeah.
Because we truly do know, but sometimes we minimize ourselves to make others comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't do that if we want to set the example for the next generation and for the people who we love and care about. We have to step into that, even though it's scary, right? Courage
It
does
is scary.
it is very scary. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about, I'm a huge fan of Dr. Brown, and she says, courage doesn't exist without vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to understand and accept that as a reality too, that it doesn't always feel good to step forward in courage at first.
Yeah.
It feels good after, because then you're like, I did it. Okay,
Yeah.
I accomplished that. And you still may not get the result you want, but you feel good about what you did. And I think, again, that's where advocates and allies need to step into that courage as well. And it can
Mm-hmm.
be just as scary. It can
Yeah.
be frightening, because you may then be labeled a troublemaker or somebody who is, constantly complaining about these things. I get it. I've been
Yeah.
that person. I still am that person. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to quiet my voice. It just means I'm going to continue to lean in, because I know if someone's feeling uncomfortable, then I've said something to make them think. And
Yeah.
then that in that moment, that's what needed to happen.
And also realize that advocacy and allyship comes in different shapes and styles. So
Yes.
I'm not asking you to bungee jump out of your comfort zone to become an advocate or to become an ally. Try to tango your way out of the comfort zone and see what fits you. And then the next time, challenge yourself again to take that tango forwards instead of backwards to become more inclusive. We need as much people in this journey as much as possible, and I hope that this conversation has inspired you to do more and to dance your way out of your comfort zone when it comes to activating your inclusive journey.
I love that. And also know that you're not always going to get it right.
Yeah,
I do my best. I don't say things right every time. I have so many questions. I have a trusted group of people I will ask, like, is it okay for me to say this? Is this
yeah,
okay? Is this right or is this wrong? Because it changes. It's not
yeah.
static. And we have to understand that. And it's absolutely okay to be an advocate and an ally and not have all the answers,
Mm-hmm.
but you
True.
try and do your
Yeah,
research, ask the right questions, and then just do what you know is the right thing to do, and you'll get there.
yeah,
But I learn every day, and I get it wrong every day, right? I get it right, but I also get it wrong, but I'm going to keep trying, because I know it's the right thing to do. And I think there's so many of us out there who want to be that person for anyone, because we all
mm-hmm.
have dimensions. And I think we can all use the support and empowerment of others, regardless of
True.
who you are, for sure. So Vivian, I am so excited to see everything else that you're going to be bringing to the table with your work. If folks want to find you, I want to make sure that they know how to get to your website, which
Mm-hmm.
is right here. So if any of you out there are human resources professionals or leadership professionals, and you're looking to bring in a true immersive experience to help influence your D&I and your mental health awareness functions within your organizations, reach out to Vivian. She has a program and options that can really help transform the way your people approach this work and the way they see themselves in the workplace. And it's just incredibly impactful. This conversation has been so great, and we've had some really great comments. I always like to ask people just some rapid fire questions as we're wrapping
Mm-hmm.
up. And they don't necessarily have anything to do with the topic, but just you as a person. So we'll start with ice cream, vanilla or chocolate?
Vanilla.
Me too, all day long. Beach or mountains?
Beach, definitely beach.
Me too. I love that. Audiobook or traditional paper book?
I'm a tech person, so I love audiobooks.
Me too. I'm the weird one. I listen to the audiobook, but then I buy the paper book so I can write in it and make notes and
I
fold.
do the digital version. I listen to the audio and then I also have the e version so that I add my notes onto it because sometimes feels like it feels also like the person is talking to you, right? In this case, I'm going through Viola Davis' book. I'm just starting, and it feels like she's talking to me. But I had the same with Michelle Obama's book, where
Yes.
it feels like she was sitting next to me and talking to me. So,
Yes.
yeah,
I listen to so many audiobooks, but I will say Michelle Obama's book,
yeah,
her voice is like
yeah,
velvet. I
yeah,
could just listen to her
yeah,
talk all the time. I tell
yeah,
people that could
yeah.
Michelle Obama read me bedtime stories? Because her best voice. I love
Yes,
that book.
definitely.
Awesome. So, what is your favorite book to recommend or give away?
My favorite book to recommend or give away. It's a children's book. Um, I would have to say the book by, I think, Ibrahim Kendi,
Oh,
about anti-racist. That's
yeah.
the one that I really want people to read and let it marinate and read again so that they can understand.
Mhm.
Um,
Baby, that one.
yeah,
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 great
yeah,
book. Yep.
yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Vivian. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you, everyone who's joined us today, for your engagement and your comments. Really enlightening. I think, obviously, your experience is not singular, right? We have
Mm-hmm.
thousands, if not millions, of people around the world who have experienced similar discrimination, bullying, and marginalization,
Yeah,
both in the workplace and outside of the workplace.
yeah.
And the work you're doing is so important to help change our society, really, our communities. And we have to do it in whatever ways make sense to us. And this is one tool in the toolbox to help bring forward a more equitable and inclusive world, because we all know we really need that, especially now. So
Yes.
again, if you're looking to connect with Vivian, you can certainly connect with her on LinkedIn, connect with her on her website. And if you're not following me, again, my name is Barbie Winterbottom. We have a show every Tuesday live here on LinkedIn. You can also check out the Business of HR YouTube channel, because we download and then re-upload every episode. So every episode from the very beginning is on our YouTube channel, and you can always share those with your teams. And stay tuned for next week for our next amazing guest. And thank you so much. I loved everything about our conversation. I hope you'll join us again. And again, I will also throw a plug in there for the Bowman Foundation, for advocacy, mental health, and advocacy in the workplace. Some really great work going to be coming out of that group as well. So thank you so much. And everybody have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.